A very good morning, students. Welcome back to online classes on programming for problem solving course. In our last class, we have seen the concept of variables and the concept of constants. How we can create variables in our C program, and what exactly is a variable, and for what purpose we are using these variables. All these concepts we have covered, and we have also seen how a constant can be referred in our C program, and what exactly a constant means. These things also we have covered. So we said a variable is nothing but it is a named memory location. So whenever we are doing programming, basically we do programming for reading the input and to process that input and to give the output. So when you are reading some input, there should be some location where you can store this input. Before processing or before giving the output, the input needs to be saved. So to save that input only, we are using these variables. Okay, variables are helpful in storing the uh, input. The input, whatever we are reading from the uh, outside world, I mean from the console, that input we store into the variables, and we process or we manipulate these variables, and finally we give the output, uh, I mean in the form of um, a printed message on the output console. Okay, so in order to create the variable, we said we need to declare the variable. We said declaration is nothing but assigning or giving the name, and definition, that is nothing but specifying the type, and initialization, that is nothing but assigning the value. So in order to create a variable, we have to do these three things, that is variable declaration, variable definition, and variable initialization. And after that, we also discussed the concept of constants. Okay, so a constant, a value which do not vary or which do not change during the execution of a program. A fixed value in your program, we can call it as a constant. So like variables, your constants will also have type. So we discussed different types of constants like integer constants, character constants, uh, floating point constants, that is we are calling it as real constants, then complex constants. And apart from these, we have discussed a special type of constant, that is a string constants, which can be which have to be or which should be enclosed within double quotations. So after this discussion, we said we're going to discuss about coding constants in today's session. So without wasting much time, so quickly we go and we see what exactly coding constants in our C language. So coding constants are nothing but the way how we are going to use these constants in our C program. We already had the discussion on constants, but we have not seen how we can use, and we have also seen the type of constants, different types of constants, but we have not seen how we can use these constants in a C program. So in order to use constants in our C program, there are three different ways. Okay, so coding the constants are nothing but using those constants in our C program. So in C, there are three different ways in which we can code the constants, or in which the constants can be coded. Okay, so the first one is the literal constants, the second one defined constants, and the last one memory constants. So it is an important question. Okay, so they will also give, I mean they will give this question like a bit in your LAQs. It is not a SAQ, short answer question, it is an LAQ part. Okay, so Coding constants, there are three different ways. The first one is literal constants, the second one defined constants, and the third one is memory constants. Okay, so one by one we need to discuss all these three. Okay, we'll start with literal constants or constant literals. Okay, a literal is nothing but it is an unnamed constants. We are not going to give any name to the constants. The way we use constants or the way we use counting values in our day-to-day life, in our mathematics, in that same way we use these constants in our C program. So if you are using constants in such a way, we call them as literals. Okay, we call them as literals. So without giving any name, if you're using the constant value directly in the program, we call it as a constant literal. So when we can go for this literal constant type, in the sense, if the fixed value is known in advance, if you know the value prior to using in the program, and if the value is fixed, and you're sure that the value will not change during the execution of the program, then only you use this literal constant. Okay, instead of using a variable, or instead of giving any identifier to the constant, or instead of giving the name to the constant directly, we are taking the value like a literal in the program. So that is the literal constants. Okay, so literals are coded using the format rules for constants. Like how we are using constants in our mathematical calculation or mathematical equation, in that same way we are using constants in C program. See over here, the literal 5. Over here, the literal 5 is used in the following statement. Over here you can see A equals to B plus 5. A simple statement, a simple C statement we can say. This is A equals to B plus 5. So when you are saying B plus 5, over here A, B, they are variables. Their values unknown. Okay, their values unknown. A and B values, they are unknown. Simply in the program execution, they will vary. According to the input or according to the value assigned, they will vary. But whereas this 5 as a count, this 5 as a value, it is a constant. It is a literal constant. You cannot change the value of 5. It will remain 5 as a count, isn't it? So can we make this 5 as a 10? No, it is not possible. We can't make 5 as a 10. It is a standard, it is approved, it is followed throughout the universe, it is 5 only. When you are saying 5, it represents 5 as a count. You can't change the value of that 5. Okay, so being a literal, it is representing 5 as a count over there. So that's the case we are calling, that's the reason we are calling it as a literal constant. Hopefully you understood. We are not giving any name, we are not giving any identifier, any variable to that one. Directly we are specifying the count, the value over there, the 5 value over there. So that's the reason we are calling it as a literal constant. So the second one is defined constants. So it is another way of coding the constants in C language. So defined constants are coded using preprocessor command. Okay, using preprocessor command like define. We use a special command in order to code the defined constants, and that keyword is define only. Okay, we call it as a preprocessor command. What is this define over here? In the sense, it is a preprocessor command. Okay, so like all preprocessor commands, define should be prefixed with a pound sign. Pound sign in the sense this hash symbol. We call it as a pound sign. Okay, so always all the preprocessor directives, what we have to do, all the preprocessor commands, they have to be prefixed with this pound symbol, hash symbol. So we write like this, hash define. Like this we write, hash define. Okay, so this preprocessor command is used in order to define the defined constant. Okay, the define command is placed in the beginning of the program. Always you need to put these pound symbol statements, whatever pound symbol statements, whatever preprocessor commands we are going to have in our program, you must put those preprocessor commands at the beginning of the program only. It is not possible to put the preprocessor commands in the middle of the program. Always you have to code these preprocessor commands at the beginning, okay, as the first instructions, as the first statements in your program. Okay, when we do it, we'll understand. And one more important note I want to make over here, one important what we call announcement I want to make over here. As we are running short of time, I'm planning the practical sessions parallel to the theory sessions. We are not going to do both together. I will create a separate video. There I will show you how to execute these C programs. We'll do complete practical part in that one. And very soon, inshallah, maybe from tomorrow or day after tomorrow, we are going to start these practical sessions. And before that, I will post one video which shows how you can download and how you can install the IDE, which is helpful in executing the C programs. Okay, so maybe tomorrow I will post that installation video for Dev CPP. Dev CPP is the IDE which we are going to use in order to execute the C programs. And in our parallel practical session that I am going to post in the evening. Okay, in regular timetable, according to the regular timetable, I am going to post the theory class, and the practical sessions I am going to post in the evening. Okay, so you better practice these practical sessions as well, because only practice will make you perfect in programming. It is not something like the theory sessions you are attending and you are expecting to be perfect in programming. It is not in that way. Definitely you have to execute the programs, then only you will understand how the errors will come, how you can resolve those errors, how you can cope up with programming. All those things will try to understand, all those things will try to practice in the practical sessions, hopefully. So the define constants, how we are defining here, I have given the example using the define preprocessor command, and that define preprocessor command must be prefixed with a pound symbol, and the complete command will come like this: hash define. So now this is my literal, 0.5 is my literal, and to this literal I am giving a name. I am giving a name, interest underscore rate. Now this interest underscore rate will become 0.5. Wherever you use this interest underscore rate, you will get 0.5 value. It is not like a variable. You can't change this interest rate. Once you are assigning this 0.5 to this interest rate, afterwards you cannot change this interest rate value to something else. Throughout the program it will remain like 0.5 only, and it is not possible to change its value. Remember this one. Then hash define pi. Pi is equals to, I am assigning this value. Okay, I am making this value as pi. So wherever you use this pi in your program, you will get this value, this entire value. And you can't change this pi value to something else other than this. Once you are defining, it is not possible to change in your program. Okay, hopefully you understood. So this is how we can create, or we can code the defined constants. Here we are giving a name to the constant value, and that name will remain like the value which you are assigning throughout the program. It is not possible to change that name's value to something else. Always the name, like pi we are assigning to 3.141592. It will remain like this value only throughout the execution of your program. You can't change that value. Hopefully you understood. So the last one is memory constant. It is also a type of constant, but over here it will have some memory. Okay, the third way to use a constant is memory constant. Memory constant uses C's type qualifier constant, CONST. This keyword is used in order to define the memory constants, to indicate that the data in the identifier cannot be changed. CONST, when you are using along with the variable name, okay, along with the variable name, what will happen? It will become like a fixed value. Okay, the a memory constant creation, it is same like a variable creation, but extra thing is this type qualifier const constant. Only that constant keyword we are keeping extra thing. So with that constant keyword, what will happen? Whatever memory location we have taken, that memory location will become like a fixed value. Whatever data you are going to keep in that memory location, it will become like a fixed value. It is not possible to change that memory location's content. Okay, hopefully you understood. So here you can see the general syntax to create a memory constant is we have to give the identifier and we have to assign the value and we have to specify the data type. So this is something like creation of a variable only. See here, int a is equals to 20. When I'm writing like this, int is my data type. Okay, I'm writing like this, int a is equals to 20. So now what will happen? A is my identifier, int is my data type, 20 is my value assigned. So what extra thing we have to put along with this in the sense, you just need to put const constant keyword. It is the type qualifier. Type qualifier. So now this type qualifier const, what it will do? It will make this a variable. Being a, it is a variable. A is a variable. It is a memory location. Okay, it is a memory location which will hold 20. So when you make this qualifier constant, the door which is helpful in changing this value 20 will be locked, will be closed. So once you make this a variable like a constant type qualifier, then what will happen? It will become like a closed box. This memory location will become like a closed box. So if you want to put something else into that one, let us assume if you want to assign some different value, a is equals to 30 you want to do. You want to put 30 in this location. It will not accept that one. For a regular variable it will accept, but for a constant variable it will not accept. Okay, it will not accept. So this is the concept of memory constants. Defining memory constant, it's similar to defining variable. Prefixing const will make the constant to be fixed in the memory location and cannot be changed. The memory constant, I mean when you are creating the memory constant, it must be initialized when it is created. Okay, when it is defined, when it is declared, there only you must need to initialize the memory constant value. You cannot left the memory constant value uninitialized. If you make it uninitialized, then it will permanently hold the garbage value, meaningless value, unknown value. Because defining once a memory constant, it is not possible to change its value. So let us assume int a. It is a normal variable. You can make a normal variable uninitialized. So here what we are doing, we are giving the name. This is declaration and we are specifying the type. This is definition and we are not assigning any value. We are making this a variable as uninitialized. Then we are writing some statements in our program and at some point we are making a value as 40 like this. So now what will happen? As this a variable, it is a normal variable. When you have created this variable, it will hold what? It will hold the garbage value. It will hold the garbage value. Garbage value means meaningless value. And when you are assigning this value to 40, now it will hold the same memory location, will hold 40. Hopefully you understood. Previously it was holding garbage value because it was uninitialized. Now it is holding meaningful value 40 in that memory location. So if you define another variable, let us say int b. When you are creating int b, what will happen? This b variable will also take some memory location and you have not done the initialization. Over here you have not done the initialization. So what this variable b will hold? It will hold garbage value only, meaningless value, because it is uninitialized. So it will hold garbage value. So now what I am doing, I am making this b variable as a memory constant. So how come? Use const type qualifier. So now this b is a memory constant. Memory constant. So now what this b is holding? This b is holding garbage value. So can I make the change after a few statements? Can I make the change into b? Can I put value some 50 into that b? Not possible, because it is a memory constant. Its value you cannot change. During such a thing is an compile time error. You will get error. Okay, it is a compile time error, compiler error. Okay, so you will get an error message. So what will happen if it is not possible to change the value of b once it is created, once it is defined and uninitialized? What will happen with this b? This b will hold this garbage value permanently. In your program execution, it will hold the garbage value permanently. They permanently hold the garbage value. So this is the meaning of that one. Creating a normal regular variable, making it uninitialized, it is acceptable, it is meaningful. Okay, because at the time of creation the normal variable will hold the garbage value, but you have the flexibility of changing its value in your program after few statements, wherever you want, wherever you insist. But to the memory constant, such type of flexibility is not there. Changing the memory constant value is completely not acceptable. So if you make the memory constant uninitialized, it will hold the garbage value permanently. So these are the three constant coding techniques we have in our C programming. The first one is the constant literal, then the second one defined constant, and the third one is memory constant. I hope you understood this one. Our next concept is syntax and logical errors. So we are dealing with errors now. So when you write a C program, being a human being, because we only writing the C programs, we are writing C programs and we are human beings, it is very common for us to generate mistakes, to do mistakes in our programming. It is very common. Even when you are writing the English statements on a paper, or even when you are writing something, there are possibilities that you misspell few words, isn't it? In your English scripting, it is completely common that you misspell few words, and it is completely common that you uh, uh, that you are not framing the sentence properly, a meaningful sentence, a grammatical sentence, isn't it? Isn't it a grammatically meaningful sentence, we can say? In English, it is very common. You might have observed this one many times. Okay, so how many types of mistakes we are doing in English? We are misspelling the words, and we are not writing the perfect statements, grammatically perfect statements, isn't it? So when you're writing the C programs, there also it is quite common that you do such type of mistakes. Okay, those mistakes we call them as errors. Those mistakes we call them as errors in computer terminology, computer programming terminology. So these errors, they are of two types. In C language, we have two types of errors. The first one is syntactical errors, and the second one is logical errors. We have to know what is syntactical error and what is logical errors. So before going to these syntactical and logical errors, first of all, we have to know what is syntax. What exactly this syntax is. See, syntax, to understand, it is very easy. See, all languages, I'm not talking about programming languages, all languages, when you are communicating, when you are learning, they have some syntactical rules, isn't it? They have some rules. Rules for framing the statements, rules for writing the words, rules for communicating. Okay, so they have few rules, and those rules we are calling them as syntax only. Those rules are nothing but your syntax. Syntax for spelling the words, syntax for framing the sentences. Okay, so all people who are communicating or who are dealing with that particular language should follow the syntax rules of that language. Then only a proper communication will be established. Otherwise, what will happen? A communication gap will come, isn't it? So These rules are collectively known as language syntax. Okay, in computer programming, syntax serves the same purpose, defining how declarations, functions, commands, and other statements should be arranged. So what the syntax will do means, the syntax will tell how you can write these statements, how you can code the instructions, how you can code different commands in your C program. Okay, so syntax are nothing but rules over here. So now the syntactical errors. So a syntactical error is something if you don't follow the syntactical rules. Okay, if you don't follow the syntactical rules, it will come under like a syntax error. Okay, a syntax error is an error in the source code of a program. Since computer programs must follow strict syntax to compile correctly. Yes, we human beings, when we are communicating, even if I do some grammatical mistake in framing the statement, you people will ignore, isn't it? Because somehow you people will understand. Okay, even if I am doing some grammatical mistake, even if I am not following proper tenses when I am framing my English statements, you people will understand, because you are having that kind of intellectuality in your own, isn't it? But being a computer, it is not at all an intellectual thing. Even if you commit a small minor mistake, your computer will not accept. So we need to be 100% sure when we are writing the instructions into the program. Okay, even if you don't put a normal full stop. See, suppose if I'm writing some letter, if I don't put full stops, commas, and all, then what will happen? Nobody will give a kind of complaint to me, isn't it? Nobody will say that you have done so and so mistake. They will read that letter and they will understand the purpose of writing that letter, isn't it? But in your computer, it is not like that. When you are writing a program, it should be 100% correct. Not even missing a single dot, single full stop is acceptable when writing the program. So yes, computer programs, they must follow the strict syntax rules. Okay, that's why they mentioned over here the syntax for a computer must be very strict syntax to compile the program correctly. Any aspect of the code that do not confirm the syntax of the programming language will produce a syntax error. So any aspect, anything that if you, any statement, any word, any letter, if you're not writing proper to the programming language, if you're not following the programming language syntax when you're writing that thing in your computer program, it will produce a syntax error. Now hopefully you understood. So if you're not following the syntax, then you will get the syntax error. Syntax error are small grammatical mistakes, sometimes limited to a single character. Syntax error, it can be missing a single character, will also generate. If you're not following the syntax, in the syntax there is a comma, let us assume. In the syntax there is a comma and you're not keeping that comma in your program. Then what will happen? Your compiler will generate a syntax error. Your compiler will detect that and your compiler will tell you that you're not following the syntax rule. You're getting error over here at so and so line, at so and so word. Like that, your compiler will show you. So all the syntax errors your compiler will detect and your compiler will show you. So you no need to bother about the syntactical errors. Yes, you need to have the knowledge of them because you only going to correct them, isn't it? You need to have the knowledge, but committing the mistakes, committing the syntactical errors, your compiler is there for you to detect those errors and show those errors to you. So few of the examples for syntactical errors here I have listed down. When we actually do this in practical, you will understand. So the missing out quotes. Suppose if you're opening the double quote and you're not closing the double quote, it is a syntactical error. Missing the brackets. You're opening curly bracket and you're not closing the curly bracket, it is a syntax error. Uppercase. If a particular keyword or if a particular thing is in capital and you are using in small, or if the keyword is in small and you are using in capital, it is also a syntactical error. Okay, semicolon at the end of the statement. All statements, whatever you are writing in your C program, they must end with a semicolon. If you are missing the semicolon at the end of a particular statement, it is also a syntactical error. Okay, using tokens in wrong order. So backslash n is a token. So if you are using n backslash, you will get error. So these type of mistakes which you are committing in your program, these type of grammatical mistakes, syntactical mistakes, if you are committing in your program, they will generate syntax errors. And syntax errors, who will detect for us? The compiler will detect for us, and compiler will list for us. The second type of errors are the logical errors. They are, if you have a logical error in your program, your compiler will not show you, and you only responsible for detecting that error and correcting that error. Logical errors are something inside the program logic. If you're not writing, if you're not producing the code correctly. Let us assume we are adding two numbers. Okay, we are adding two numbers. So what is the logic for adding two numbers? Result equals to, we have to read two numbers and we have to add them, a plus b. Like this we have to write. Result equals to a plus b is the logic for adding two numbers. So suppose instead of writing like this, if I write like this, result equals to a minus b. So am I committing any syntactical error over here? No. I'm not committing any syntactical error. My intention of writing this statement is to add two numbers. But what I am doing over here, I am subtracting one number from the other. Isn't it? I'm not adding two numbers. I'm subtracting one number from the other. So it is a logical error. It is not a syntactical error. If there is a syntactical error, your compiler will detect. But there is no syntactical error. I'm following the language rule. I'm following all the language rules when I'm writing this statement. So your compiler will not detect this error. Rather, what it will give, what it will do, it will give an improper output. Wrong output, because instead of adding you are subtracting, so your program will generate wrong output, isn't it? So logical errors will not generate any error. So how we can find out if there is a logical error in the program? In the sense, by seeing the output. If the output is not accurate, if the output is not correct, there is a possibility that you have logical errors in your program. And logical errors your compiler will not detect. You only have to detect by seeing the output. You have to analyze the output, and if you're not getting the output properly, accurately, then what we have to do? Again, we have to open the program and we have to check the code where exactly we have committed the error, where exactly we have committed the mistake. That mistake we call it as an logical mistake, logical errors. It is a type of runtime error that may simply produce the wrong output or may cause the program to crash. Not only generating the wrong output, sometimes if you don't write the logic correctly, what will happen? Your entire application, your entire program will crash. Okay, so many different types of programming mistakes can cause logical errors. So assigning a value to the wrong variable, it is a logical error. Multiplying two numbers instead of adding them, here what we are doing, we are subtracting instead of adding, so it is also a logical error. Calculating average, so when you are calculating the average, you must follow the proper brackets, isn't it? You are adding test 1 marks plus test 2 marks. Here you can see that one, test 1 marks, test 2 marks, and test 3 marks. Then you are dividing. So you must follow the BODMAS rule over here. Okay, so generally what will happen, if you write the statement like this, first this division will be performed, and this division will be performed between test 3 and this 3. That is not our intention. We want to divide this 3 with this addition. Whatever we are going to get the sum from here to here, to that we want to divide with 3. But if you write the statement like this, it will divide only this test 3 marks, and that thing will get added to test 2, and that thing will get added to test 1. Like that you will get the final average. That is an inaccurate, improper output, we can say. But to avoid that one, what should we do? We should put these 3 between the parentheses so that they will get the priority, and this addition will be performed first and then the division will be performed. So like this, hopefully you understood. So this is syntactical and logical errors. So the difference between syntactical and logical errors I have given in the tabular form. uh, the first one, the syntactical errors, error versus logical error. What is a syntactical error? If we do some mistake in the programming language syntax, we get a syntactical error. And logical error, it is not we are violating the rule of the programming language. Rather, what we are doing over here, we are not writing the logic properly, isn't it? Because of that, you will not get the output properly. Your program will be executed, you will not get any syntactical issues, any syntactical errors. Your program will be executed and you will get a logical error, that is inaccurate output. Then the syntax error occurs due to the fault in the programming syntax. A logical error occurs due to the fault in the algorithm or the logic processing. If you're not writing the algorithm logic processing properly, you will get a logical error. The detection, who will detect these syntactical errors? The compiler will detect, and the compiler will list all the syntactical errors in a sequence. Okay, but the logical errors your compiler will not detect. It is the responsibility of the programmer to detect the logical errors and correct them by himself. Okay, so here your compiler will not help you in detecting and correcting the logical errors. It is the sole responsibility of the programmer to detect them and to correct them. Then simplicity, it is easier to correct the syntactical errors because your compiler is helping us, isn't it? Syntactical errors we can easily detect and we can easily correct. The simplicity is very less over, very more over here. The simplicity is more over here because the compiler is helping us in detecting and correcting the syntactical errors. But whereas the logical errors, as we are not going to get any help, it is completely our brainstorming job to detect the logical errors, to correct them. It is very difficult to identify and to correct the logical errors. Remember this one, the difference between syntactical and logical errors. It is a 2 marks question. You have to draw this table. Then the object code and executable code. Okay, in the process of programming, we discussed different steps. Okay, and we said the computers, they do not understand the human languages, the natural languages, whatever we use to communicate with each other. Those languages the computer will not understand. So the computer will understand only the sequences, or only the statements, or only these instructions if they are coded in machine language. The computer will understand only the machine language. It will not understand the what we call the natural languages. On the other hand, it is very difficult for us. I mean, see, the computer will understand only the machine language. Can't we learn that machine language so that we can code the instructions directly into the machine language? Why we have dependent on other programming languages rather than coding the instructions in machine language means, see, learning the machine language and coding the instructions in machine language, it is very difficult. For a human being, it is not at all possible. We have to do a lot of work in order to do so. So that's the reason we are dependent on other intermediate programming languages. Okay, because learning those programming languages, coding instructions in those programming languages, they are easy. We have a problem over here, isn't it? The computer is not understanding human language, and humans are not understanding computer's language. Humans' languages are natural languages, and computer languages are machine language. So both are having difficulty over here in order to establish the communication. So that's the reason we are dependent on intermediate languages like your C, your C++, your Java. All these languages are intermediate languages. So those intermediate languages we are learning, isn't it? We are learning the Java, we are learning C, we are learning C++, and with the help of those languages we are communicating with the computer. Is the computer is going to understand those intermediate languages? No. Again, there is a problem. The computer will not understand those languages either. The computer will understand only one language, that is machine language. So what we have to do, again, we need a translator program over there. Those programming languages instructions, whatever instructions we are coding in C, C++, Java, again they need to be translated into machine language. Those translator programs are nothing but your compilers, your interpreters, all these things. Okay, so programming languages were invented to make it easier for humans to write computer programs. Why these languages have been invented? In the sense to make the stuff easy for us, to make the stuff easy for the human beings, so that we can easily code the instructions and we can give those instructions to the computer. The program, we call the program, always we call the program as a source code. Remember this one. The program, when I'm saying it is a source code, must be translated into machine language so that it can be executed and it can be understood by the machine. Okay, the program, the source code, it must be translated into the machine language before giving it to the computer. The way that is the way that this translation occurs depend on the translator program. So what type of translator program, whether we are using compiler, interpreter, what we are using, the translation process, it is entirely dependent on the type of translator program we are using. Okay, in case of high level languages, a special program called the compiler is used to translate the program, that is source code, into machine language. Okay, in case of high languages like your C, it is a high level language. So in case of high level languages, we are using compilers to translate our source code, source program, into machine language. C is also known as compiled programming language. This is the reason why we are calling our C language as a compiled programming language, because we are using a compiler in order to convert the source code written in C language into machine language code. Okay, C compiler takes the program, we call it as a source code. Source code means normal high level language instructions. Normal high level language, C language instructions, we call it as a source code. What we give, this source code we give to the compiler. Here we are having the source code, and this source code we are giving to the compiler. And that compiler, what it is doing, it is translating the source code program into machine language code. We call that code as the object code. Whatever code in machine language we are getting, we call that code as a object code. Object code will be in machine language. Source code will be in C language. Remember this one. In between we have the translator program, compiler, translator. Compiler will act like a translator which converts the source code, C language instructions, into object code, machine language instructions. Hopefully you understood. So another specialized program called a linker. Linker is also used to combine the object file with the previously compiled object module, and we call that final module as an executable file. So object file we are getting over here, object code we are getting over here, and this object code will be added with other pre-compiled modules. Pre-compiled modules. And who are doing this job for us? Adding object code with pre-compiled modules, in the sense the linker. And finally we will get the executable code. We will get the executable code. This executable code you can give to the computer and you can get the output. The object code, even though it is in machine language, it is not ready for execution. But whereas the executable code, it is in machine language and it is ready for execution. So object code, you have to remember this one. Object code, it is in machine language because it is the output of the compiler. So it is in machine language, but even though it is in machine language, it is not ready for execution because some of the library files or the pre-compiled modules which are missing in this object code. That's the reason it is not ready for execution. But the executable code, it is the collection of all the library modules and pre-compiled modules and the object code. And executable code, it is ready for execution. So over here you can understand that process, complete process. See, source code which is in C language. This source code which is in, always the source code will be in C language. We are giving it to the compiler. It is a translator program. and we are getting the object code. Object file, that is nothing but object code. It will be in machine language. Even though it is in machine language, it is not ready for execution. Why it is not ready for execution means still this runtime library files, they are missing in this object code. That's the reason it is not ready for execution. So who will add this runtime library files with the object code? In the sense, the linker will do that job. The linker will add this object code with the runtime library file. So we are getting the executable file, executable code, and this executable code, it will be in machine language and it will be ready for execution. Hopefully you understood this one. So this is another concept we have completed, the difference between object code, source code and executable code. We have understood. This diagram also you need to draw if they ask you this question to write in your exams. Okay, let me just check the timing. It is 45 minutes, so still 5 to 10 minutes we have. Let's just start the next concept, that is arithmetic expressions. So arithmetic expressions, when we are writing the statements in our C program, we generally create expressions. Expressions are nothing but they are a sequence of operators, operands and operations. Okay, so we have to understand what is an expression, what is an operator, what is an operand, what is simple expression, what is complex expression. Okay, so expression is nothing but it is a sequence of operators, operands, and whenever you are going to have operators and operands, if you apply the suitable operations according to the operator, you will get a final reduced value, isn't it? Expression will always give you a final reduced value, a single value. Remember this one. Expression, what it will give? It will give a single value. Suppose if I write a plus b minus c. Okay, a plus b minus c, I'm writing on the, yeah, go to the whiteboard. Okay, whiteboard. Here I'm writing a plus, just give me a, okay, so I'm writing over here a plus b minus c. So what is this? This is an expression. Here we have a, b, c. These three are my operands. Operands are something on which the operator will perform the operation. So here we have plus and minus. What are these? These are my operators. Operators, plus operator, minus operator. So what these operators will indicate over here means a kind of operation. Here plus operator indicates the addition operation and minus operator indicates the subtraction operation, isn't it? Addition means we have to add these two numbers. Subtraction means we have to subtract the value whatever we are going to get over here. So like this is complete thing when we are talking, when we are dealing, we call it as an expression. Okay, expression. Expression means it is a sequence of operands and operators that reduces to a single value. Take the value of a like 10, b like 20, c like 5. What you will get? A plus b, that is 30, minus c, 5, minus 5. So you will get 25. Okay, it will be the expression, it got reduced to a single value, as you can see, 25. So it is whatever definition we have written for the expression, it is giving the complete meaning over here. Expression. An expression is a sequence of operands and operators that reduces to a single value. Operands, our operands are a, b, c in my example. Operators are plus, minus. Reduces to a single value, 25 we got. When we took a value as 10, b value as 20, c value as 5, we got 25. Okay, our expression is a plus b minus c was our expression. So an expression is a sequence of operands and operators that reduces to a single value. The full meaning I have given over here. Okay, so next, what is an operator? It is a syntactical token. It is the operator is there in your programming language syntax. So it is a syntactical token that requires an action. When I am saying action over here, it is nothing but an operation. Okay, an operator is a syntactical token that requires an action to be performed, an action to be taken. Okay, so what is operator? It is a syntactical token, it is a special symbol in your programming language that requires a special type of action to be taken or an operation to be performed, we can say. Always, whatever operator you take, plus, minus, multiplication, division, modulo division, we have a set of operators that we will discuss in our next slide. All operators, they are syntactical tokens, and whenever you see that syntactical token in your program, you need to perform a kind of operation over there. Suppose if you see the plus sign, you need to perform the addition. If you see the minus sign, you need to perform the subtraction. If you see the multiplication sign, you need to perform the multiplication over there. Okay, likewise, all these operators, all these syntactical tokens, they have a predefined operation to be performed. Then what is an operand? An operand is an object, an operand is an entity, an operand is a variable on which the operators will perform the operation. So here, plus sign, when we are seeing both sides of this plus sign, we have two operands, A and B. So plus sign addition, we are performing on A and B. So like operands are the entities which receives the operation from the operator. Remember this one. So expression, already we have seen the definition. Expressions are nothing but they are the sequence of operators and operands, we said, and that when we the expression will be always reduced to a single value, we said. Okay, so these expressions, they are of two types: single expression, complex expression. Simple expression and complex expression. Simple expression in the sense it contains only one operator. Remember this one. In your simple expression, you will always have only one operator. Okay, and what is complex expression? In complex expression, you always have more number of operators, more than one. Okay, if you have only one operator in your expression, we call it as a simple expression, and if you have more number of operators in your expression, we call it as a complex expression. Why the name simple, why the name complex means, because if you have only one operator, there is no confusion. There is no confusion. Simply you can evaluate that operator plus and you can finally get the one single value, isn't it? Okay, if there is only one operator, there is no confusion at all. You will get the single value by simply evaluating that operator. But if you have more number of operators in your expression, like 2, here plus and multiplication, then the confusion will start. Which operator we need to evaluate first? Whether we have to evaluate plus first or whether we have to evaluate multiplication first. Again, we have to follow some different rules. Like in your mathematics, we are following the BODMAS rule, isn't it? Here in C programming, we have a separate rule for this one that we will discuss when it comes in our discussion. Okay, so complex expression means more operators, simple expression means only one operator. Then the operators in C language, it is an LAQ, long answer question. Okay, many times they ask this question. It is an LAQ, long answer question. Operators in C language. So operators are the foundation for any programming language, not only C. You go to C++, you go to Java, you go to Python, whatever programming language you take, even in your PHP also. Okay, whatever programming language you take, operators play a vital role over there. Okay, an important role over there. Okay, the functionality of C programming language is incomplete without the discussion of this operator, or the learning of this C language, or we can say the practice of this C language or the functionality of this C language. It is incomplete without the discussion of this operators. The operators can be defined as, already I have defined the operator in my previous slide. It is a syntactical token, we said. It is a syntactical token defined in the programming language syntax which performs a specific mathematical or logical computation on operands. Always the operator will perform its operations on operands. Okay. In other words, operator operates on operands. Operator operates on operands. Remember this one. In C, operators are broadly categorized. There is another type of categorization we have in our next slide. The broad categorization, when you see, it is based on the number of operands involved in a expression. Okay, if an operator is taking only one operand to perform its operation, we call such an operator as a unary operator. If an operator is taking two operands to perform its operation, we call it as an binary operator. If an operator is taking three operands to perform its operation, we call it as an ternary operator. Okay, unary, binary, ternary operators. This is the broad categorization. So the same thing I explained over here. The broad categorization is done based on the number of operands the operator will use in exhibiting its functionality. In order to perform its functionality, how many operators does it need? How many operands does it need? Based on that, the operators have been categorized into three categories. If the operator is taking only one operand, we call it as unary. If it is taking two operand, we call it as binary. If it is taking three operands, we call it as ternary. Likewise. So examples and everything we will discuss in the more specific categorization. Based on the above criterion in mind, operators have been categorized into the following types. So how many? 8 different types of operators we have over here. Okay, starting from A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. So like 8 different types of operators have been categorized in your C programming language. The first one is the arithmetic operators. Second one, relational, logical, bitwise, assignment, increment and decrement, conditional, and there is a special type of operator category, the last category, we call it as other operators. Okay, about all these types of operators we will discuss in our next session, and after that, the precedence and associativity of operators, that is also an important question from your second unit, that also we need to discuss. Okay, hopefully we will try to wind up as much as possible as early as possible. Okay, hopefully. Thank you very much, student. And moreover, I said that I'm going to give practical session videos separately, so you need to be focused on that practical session videos as well. Okay, there is no excuse that because of so and so reason, because of internet was not working, because of my data was over, because of my, so all those reasons you just keep them aside. Already uh, everything is going online now, so you need to be ready for online classes, online practice. You need to follow this one, because in order to get the degree, in order to complete the semester, exams are inevitable. You have to go through these exams. So how come we are going to fulfill the examination requirement? In the sense, by practice, by reading only, isn't it? You can't escape exams. So definitely do the practice, do your work at home, and follow the lectures, hopefully. Thank you very much, students.